residence is surrounded by 787 hectares and welcomes almost 15 million visitors each year to admire its lavish room, art collection, and splendid gardens. Versailles also served as a national historical building where the French Parliament meets in Congress. One of the greatest achievements in French 17th century art, the palace itself contains a staggering 2,300 rooms with over 100 bearing witness to lavish the luxury of the former royal residence, and another 100 displaying the remarkable collection of paintings and sculptures of the Museum of French History, created by Louis Philippe in 1837. In addition to the palace, the kings of Versailles built more intimate space in an attempt to gain some brief respite from courtly etiquette. The Grand Trianon is a spectacular colonnade structure of pink marble opening onto a central courtyard. Here the Hall of Mirrors is particularly impressive at 73 meters long with 357 mirrors where courtiers and illustrious guests were received at the time of Louis XIV. The neoclassical Petit Trianon was a home at the heart of the gardens, affording even more privacy, eventually given as a gift to Marie Antoinette in 1774. Marie Antoinette went on to build the Queen's Hamlet, a model village inspired by the rustic architecture of Normandy and primarily used for educating her children. Although her performing passions were indulged at the Queen's Theatre, inaugurated in 1780, the only building to have survived fully intact and unchanged since the 18th century. Versailles' famous garden, designed by André Lenôtre, is also the largest museum of outdoor sculpture in the world. The Hall of Mirrors, or Galerie de Glace, is a grand Baroque-style gallery and one of the most emblematic rooms in the Royal Palace of Versailles. The grandiose ensemble of the hall and its adjoining salon was intended to illustrate the power of Louis XIV. Located on the ground floor of the palace, Central Valley, it faces west toward the palace garden for complete perspective. The Hall of Mirrors have been the scene of events of great historic significance, including the proclamation of the German Empire and the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. The Hall of Mirrors was built during the third building stage between 1678 and 1684 and was to replace the large terrace that opened towards the garden. The terrace was originally situated directly outside of the king and the queen's apartments. The terrace was considered to be a rather misplaced architectural element and exposed to the elements, reducing its utility. Eventually, it was decided to demolish it, and architect Jules Hardouin Monsard was tasked with the design, development, and the construction of the Mirror Hall Gallery, and artist Charles Lebrun received the honor to create the interior decorative apparatus. The Mirror Hall's 17 windows open in the direction of the park. On the opposite inside wall of the hall are 17 equally large mirrors. They are composed of more than 350 individual mirror surfaces. On the one hand, the mirrors had an aesthetic function as the mirror image of the garden depicted the exterior of the castle into the interior of the building and reflected the candlelight in the evening. On the other hand, the mirrors also conveyed the king's wealth and the efficiency of the French economy in a subtle way. Gardens of Versailles. In 1661, Louis XIV entrusted André de Notre with the creation and renovation of the Gardens of Versailles, which he considered just as important as the palace. Work on the garden was started at the same time as the work on the palace and lasted for 40 years. During this time, André de Notre collaborated with the likes of Jean-Baptiste Colbert, superintendent of buildings to the king from 1664 to 1683, who managed the project, and Charles Lebrun, who was made first painter to the king in January 1664 and provided the drawings for a large number of the statue and fountains. Last but not the least, its project was received by the king himself, who was keen to see every detail. Not long after the architect Jules Anton Mansart had been made first architect to the king and superintendent of buildings, built the orangery and simplified the outlines of the park, and particularly by modifying or opening of some of the groves. Creating the gardens was a monumental task. A large amount of soil had to be shifted to level the ground, create parterres, build the orangery, and dig out the fountains and canal in places previously occupied solely by meadows and marshes. Trees were brought in from different regions of France. Thousands of men, sometimes even entire regiments, took part in this immense project. To maintain the design, the garden needed to be replanted approximately once every 100 years. Louis XVI did so in the beginning of his reign, and the undertaking was next carried out during the reign of Napoleon III. Following damage caused by a series of storms in the late 20th century, including one in December 1999, which was the most devastating, the garden has been fully replanted and now boasts a fresh, youthful appearance similar to how it would have looked to